it now.
Can we get ready to be about to go live?
We're about to go live, Anthony. There's a pin point.
Right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first of 3 meetings this evening, which is our extraordinary council. And we've got Councillor Zibogan and Councillor Ahmed on Zoom. Welcome, everybody. And we will have a public session, but maybe the people who are from members of the public here for the one of the other meetings. Yeah, thank you. So welcome to you as well. Any apologies for absence?
Yes, Councillor Collins, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Schaefer, and Councillor Arnold.
Very much. Any declarations of interest? So we move on to item 3, which is Honorary Freewoman of Buckingham. And this was proposed by Councillor Davies, that this council resolved to award the Honorary Freewoman of Buckingham to Barbara Farmer for her many years of service as Buckingham's maid's-bearer. Do we need to discuss this, or shall we move straight to the vote? Okay, those in favour of that, please. Oh, we need a second.
A second.
Thank you. Please show if you're in favour of that. Thank you very much. And item 4, Honorary Freeman of Buckingham, proposed by Councillor Stutchbury. This council resolves to award the Honorary Freedom of Buckingham to former councillor and Mayor Mike Smith for his many years of service to the town.
I just prepared a few things that people might want to know about Mike. He's trustee of the old jail, trustee of the Heritage Trust, elected to the Town Council, chair of the Buckingham Environment Committee, member of the Green Buckingham Group, mayor of Buckingham, member of Buckingham Importance and Charitable Trust, member of the General Charities, trustee of Buckingham and Winslow Citizens Advice, chair of Diversity of Buckingham Group, company secretary of the old jail, chair of the Environment Committee, and he was also a minister of volunteers for the Buckingham Community Speed Watch. I think he worked with a colleague across the way. And he was chair of Town Centre Event, member of Buckingham Dementia Alliance Group, chair of Resources Committee, chair of Buckingham Town Council Economic Development Group, and also when he first came to the town, he also helped with his role as an health and safety officer in his previous profession as a civil servant. He also came into government and assisted the then town clerk and put together a safety programme for the Charter Fair. So I think that's why I'm nominating him to be. Thank you.
Your second, please. Your second, Councillor White.
I put my hand up to second that.
Second
that nomination. Worked with Mike, well, since we both joined the town council at the same time, and worked with him on a number of those charities that have just been mentioned. So I think he would be an excellent nomination. Happy to second that, but I may just be certain.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I misunderstood you when you're raising your hand. I think that's probably sufficient. Can we vote on that? Those in favour? Thank you very much. And that concludes our extraordinary meeting. So we'll close that meeting.
So far, you happy?
Yes, indeed. Reconvene as interim council, and I believe we've got members of the public who wish to speak. So, John Russell first. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening.
Those who don't know me, my name is John Russell, and I've been the chairman.
Do take a seat, John. You don't.
No, I'll stand up.
Okay.
I can see you better.
Thank you.
I'm the chairman of Buckingham Access for All, a little private group that I've been very happy to work with for over 20 years. And I have come here to report the sad demise of the group. In 2019, before COVID, I had 20 members. Since then, 14 have either resigned, moved away, and sadly 2 of them have died. That has left me with just 4 members. Now, you all get impressions of looking at people, and you can be totally wrong. For example, I'm nearly 100, right? And the other 3 members are close behind, not gone as fast as we used to. Right? I've enjoyed working with the group for 20 years, but now I'd like to hand over to the council, who after all have been the ones who we've had to approach, and you're the ones that have done things that we've asked, potholes, pavements, stairs, and all the rest of it. You're the ones that have had to do it. You are holding about £2,000 in a pigeonhole for our use. It's been there for a while. And I'm holding about 800 odd pounds in an account that I've been using to the benefit of the group. Well, Mark, I'm asking you to donate this money to a suitable local charity, preferably one that involves disabled people. Please me if you could do that. And all I can say now, can I hand over to you and trust that you will continue the campaign that we've been working on for all these years. Well, thank you for listening to me. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, John. You've done an amazing job over all these years. Thank you for coming this evening and raising that issue with us. It's not on our agenda, so we can't discuss it, but I'm sure we'll put it on the next appropriate agenda for us to have a full discussion about it. And that will be a public meeting, so you'll be welcome to come along, or we'll make sure you're informed of the outcome afterwards. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you. Just for information, really, we do have the Equality and Diversity Group that is set up to include all equality and diversity, and that does include disabled people. So it will still be discussed.
We've got the idea.
Potholes and pavements will still be discussed. Promise.
I did suggest that, you know, we all went to Blackpool.
Might not come back.
Councillor Mordew.
I've known John for many years, and I think he's worked extremely hard, in spite of all the problems that he's encountered with disability, and he's kept persevering and he's gone on. I know we're not supposed to discuss it. Well, I'm not discussing it. I want to thank you. So I don't want any discussion on that. Just one thing, John. You said you wanted to put the money to a suitable charity.
Yes.
We could, if you wanted to give it to town council, we could ring fence it for you to pass on, but we couldn't use it for any other purpose. But what do you want? I just want to clarify that point. Are you giving it to town council for charitable purposes, or are you giving it to another organisation such as Lisa said?
I'm not sure we can enter into that this evening. Maybe that's a discussion we can have at a later date.
Yeah.
And maybe give John an opportunity to think about that as well. Thank you.
I have an opinion, but I'll leave it to you.
Yeah.
I can't come on another occasion, not if necessary.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Stotchby.
Just remembering that, just to let members know, I had a brief conversation with John. He was in Windsor over the weekend and he got an award for 50 years for scouting. So I think we should give him a round of applause. I never lasted 2 days, 2 weeks myself in it, but those who did it were successful.
As I said to you, the idea is we try to get young people to eventually form a useful place in society. And then, in this case, we failed.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether you wanted.
What just that? I knew he was going to say that.
Yes. So, in fact, yeah, okay. Moving on to the other part of the agenda, apologies for absence. Need to hear them again, I think.
So, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Shaver, Councillor Morgan for when he leaves shortly. Councillor Harvey, could not be.
Right, thank you very much. And any declarations of interest? So we'll move on to item 3, which is major application amended plans in relation to land Osier Way. Mark, as chair of the planning committee, has given a lot of thought to this and will be putting a proposal to council after we've had a discussion. So it's open to the floor to hear your views on this important application. Thank you. Councillor Cole, you want to-
Yeah, if I could, I've got a statement, thank you, just to get the ball rolling. Outline permission for 420 houses on land off Osier Way was given in July 2022, and now Waits developers have come back seeking permission for reserve matters about the details of the development. This is for phase 1 of the development. It's 121 dwellings on the southeastern part of the site, which is wholly in the parish of Gorcut and Lemborough, but within the Buckingham Neighbourhood Development Plan area. The other 4 phases of the development, which will follow in due course, are wholly within the parish of Buckingham. But tonight, we also have to consider the design code for the whole estate. So I'll be making 2 proposals once this council has discussed the applications. This is our last chance to get this right and to avoid another details disaster like Lace Hill. Firstly, I hope you've all read Catherine's comments on her objections to the first of the developer's detailed plans last September. At that time, we stated the application was premature because the design code and phasing plan discharge of conditions had not yet been approved. It still has not been, and the revised design code has since been submitted. It's an apparent cut and paste exercise. It takes no account of the adopted 2001 Buckingham Vision and Design SPD, nor does it acknowledge the design policies of Buckingham Neighbourhood Plan, the Vale of Aylesbury Plan, or the National Planning Policy Framework. The 35% affordable housing total is wrong. It's 147, not 145, and 26 of the affordable dwellings have been put in a cluster, ignoring national and local guidelines. None have garages. Not every dwelling has an electric vehicle charging point, something that's been a national requirement since June 2020, nor is there evidence of solar panels or grey water recycling or air or ground heat pumps as alternatives to heating boilers. Broadband must also be available for occupation. There are no schools within walking distance for children, because the only entrance and exit of phase 1 is into an industrial estate frequented by heavy goods vehicles. We must demand that footpaths be provided and agreed highways improvements be made before any houses are occupied. Sewerage and drainage remain major concerns if no details. The neighbouring industrial estate through which drains would run are unadopted, and the risk of flooding of the Meadway estate is a possibility. Many of the roads on the estate remain block paved despite our objections, which make them unadoptable and means that refuse vehicles cannot get close to collection points. It also raises the question of who will maintain them. We and the local planning authority have both opposed shared street surfaces on safety grounds. There are so many things still wrong with this application that the applicants really need to revisit them while waiting for the design code to be approved. Regarding that design code, you'll also have seen the comments from Roger Newell, the Buckingham Society, to the developer's revised application. That is the subject of a separate submission for the discharge of condition 8 of the original outline planning permission, received last July but still undetermined. Roger, a former planning officer, notes the unsuitability for Buckingham of much of the house design, colours and materials, and has already mentioned its failure to acknowledge local and national design policies. He notes that, it is quote, "The submitted document has little substance as a template for this development, should be built out." He adds that the revised document is no improvement on that submitted in July 2022 and still lacks the relevant information on which a design code should be based, and urges the agent to look again and hopefully produce a document fit for purpose. Before I propose that this council should oppose both applications before us tonight, I'd invite members to add their input onto how we should word it. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, well, thank you, Councillor Cole, for thorough and detailed, as usual, response to this. I have met officers this morning, Buckingham officers this morning, Buckingham Council to discuss this. I, with my colleague, Councillor Mark Cole, attended the original planning decision of this, where we put many of the points that Mark put now in the limited time available to the decision. The decision was taken through proposed and strategic development control by a local member to go through and was agreed. Now, this points within this application, the phasing of this application are quite concerning in the sense that such of the application and the phase in the application, I could not get a concise and satisfactory understanding of. I'm really concerned that there's two elements to do with this. One is that we know that the Buckingham sewage works is at capacity. We also know that the drains adjacent to the industrial estate are not adopted. And we also, and my fear is with the historical problems in areas around the sewage system below it, that we have not had a plan given to us of which is going to be adopted. We need to get an understanding where they're going to put the sewage and whether they're going to put a new one. I understand that Angular Water has indicated they'd adopt it, but adopt what? There is no actual sewage system that they're Angular Water own, because the sewage, I understand, on the industrial estate are private. So that leaves us with a problem. The other thing with this, the water discharge of this site, they said they're going to use the main water courses. Well, the main water courses is the stream bed that runs down across the A421, down through Meeway and into the river. Now, we need to have an understanding how they're going to do that, and are they going to build out the actual ability to hold some water back at the onset, not halfway through the staging of this development. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and I think we have to stress this really strongly, that the phasing of this is such, the area that they're putting on is the phasing in the Gorford parish, which is the middle section, not the outside sections which are in the Buckingham parish. It means they need to get on and agree at the first instance the footpaths and footways for the children to get out of this estate, to get access across the A41 to get to school. Now, we know that there's a previous application agreed for an industrial park, which has got going to be lorries traffic. We also know that many of the people, because of the turning circle on the industrial estate, tend to use that roundabout. So that's very important. We also know that there's no real footway across the fields for children to get to the Lake Hill School. And we also know that the A421 is congested. Now, there are some really major points with this. And Mark's expressed all those things about the affordable, which I would do. But those things, I think, are paramount to get an understanding of, because once this is agreed, and if we find that the sewage system's going to go in the wrong place, we could worry about other residents overloading the sewer system and the fact that it pumps away. So I think that we do need to get some evidence of how they're going to actually discharge the sewage from the site. I have been to Cabinet, I've been to Council, I've got written questions on this, and I'm asking an additional question, a written question at Council around sewage discharge on Wednesday, which should get a response tomorrow. So I have not walked away from this, but I, like all of you, we live in a community, and when this estate goes up, despite the fact that it was against the Buckingham neighbourhood plan and we didn't want it where it was and we wanted industrial, we need an estate which is fit and capable to cope with the people who move into it. Many of the things I've done, I've wrote a large email to the officer in response to our conversation this morning. I think they're sending it down to Bletchley Park at the moment, and it will be Bletchley Park are busy trying to decipher it with my dyslexia. But I say that in jest, clearly, but I haven't neglected it, and I'm sure other members were concerned, but I think it was as Councillor Cole says, it came too early, it came in the wrong place, it was the wrong development in the wrong place, and we have got to try to get this right, because otherwise we'll have residents living in a place that is not fit for them to live in, and their burden of that development will overspill into the rest of the community. I have responded to do with the site stuff, which we're going to discuss later as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did anybody else want to mention anything? Councillor White.
Thank you. And thank you for the planning committee and the chairman to put together quite a number of serious considerations for the town council to get to. I'm not going to repeat most of those, but for me, I'm particularly concerned that the timescale, it has nearly a year to review this and to really give the town something good to look at. And I was just refreshing my memory of the design code, and it's just so woolly. I mean, there was an element in there that Paul's palette is basically a pointless chapter, because they then end that chapter with "it is not possible to specify materials." If they're that woolly at this stage of an application, then they're not taking Buckingham seriously. And the planners should be kicking this out. If they're putting in such woolly documents so late in the day. This should have been determined before Christmas. Anyway, so I'm happy to support the objection to this. I think one of the specific things I would like to recommend in the objection is that the connection to existing cycleways is shocking. There is no mention of connection to Gokul Road, and there is very poor and ambiguous connections to Audio Way and up to the roundabout to Mount Pleasant. Given the number of conversations that a number of councillors had about making Buckingham a more cyclically attractive town, again, so late in the day, they're still not wanting to address that. They really are doing the bare minimum. So I'm happy to support the objection.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd quite like to put my 2 pence in. I think it's been mentioned in there. My always gripes are refuge collection and connectivity. And I think neither of those have really been specified. Various issues with turning circles and private driveways or unadopted, very long, maybe the wrong sort of services for those sort of vehicles as well over time can cause issues for the residents if they own that. And in other areas on the connectivity to services, there should be a full project plan in place for connectivity to the sewers so that they can work in tandem with the utility companies so that they can phase it in with their own rollout plans and not just say, we will try and connect them and go ahead. So because it may be that they're not going to put anything there for quite a few years. And therefore there will be issues. Likewise with the communications and other utilities. They use a word should throughout the document quite a bit, which is very willy, and I'm not one for these minor or changing plans. It's again creepage. Once they've got their foot in the door, then they just want a few extra changes, and then there's a whole load of work for people like ourselves behind the scenes to try and marry up that. Catherine does a brilliant job in tracking it all, but we shouldn't be subjected to like this. As Councillor White says, they've had ages to get this right. The width of the roads, we've seen a page at Lace Hill, some of them are a bit narrow. It may be a national guideline, but when you get a few cars there parked because of tandem parking behind each other, it then causes a knock-on effect. And to say it should be wider in places just doesn't cut the mustard, really. It needs to be thought through fully. I'm sure there's lots of other things in there which various colleagues have picked up, but no, they need to go back to the drawing board, put a complete rework on this and give us our full plans, including lighting as well. Because we don't want even more uplighters in there to light pollute the area. They haven't spoken about the what's the word? The efficiency of the house. in how it will lose and that sort
Yeah,
of
the office.
items, which all need to be included, really. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tribe. Does anybody else want to add, or shall we move back to councillor Holt for his proposal?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for the input. Roger Newell is here. I don't know if Roger would want to add anything, if you wanted to suspend standing orders. Or if Roger
Well,
wants-
he's an invited guest this evening, so I think
No,
it's
that's fine. My comments.
on the design. Okay.
Well, Roger, thank you very much for the work you've done on this. It's been much appreciated. So my proposals tonight are firstly that the major application, which is 2202, don't put my glasses on. 2202-689 ADP Land at Ozo Way, that we object to these detailed plans, remit these reserved matters on the grounds that we've discussed tonight. Paula and Catherine can put our reasons together that we've heard. Thank you very much. So that's my first proposal. The second proposal is that we also object to throw out the design code presented by the developers.
I think we were going to give another opportunity to discuss the design.
You want to do that again? Okay,
And
well,
then
I'll stick with that first
Roger
one.
can speak if you'd like.
Thank you.
Just
So
pick up the-
that's my proposal on the major application.
Do we need to specify those things? We were talking about sewage, the
Yeah, everything.
paths,
Flooding.
yeah, flooding, connectivity,
Everything.
yeah, okay. Concerns about safety.
Side of the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Do we have a seconder for that proposal?
Well,
Councillor White.
seconded.
Those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous again.
Thank you very much. So if we move on to the design code,
Would you like to speak?
Well, I think Mayor, I more or less covered it in what I said earlier about just about the, the cut and paste design book that the developers have presented through, which is totally unacceptable.
okay, thank you. And I don't know if we can hear, did you want to speak on this?
What I would say is that if you're going to produce a design code, then look at what other ones have been approved, and this doesn't do anything. It's no review of Buckingham, no Buckingham's, so there is anything like that. It just needs the sort of Jeremy Joe from a greenfield to a copy built development, and how you should do that. And this is.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I just think it's to be, or it comes from it's appalling that they actually do what they can submit this, and it'll be acceptable. Yeah.
And can I, on behalf of everybody, thank you for the work we've put in on this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Suchby, then
Yeah,
Councillor White.
I think the design code, thank you, Roger, for the time you put into it. It helped me no end with my meeting this morning. The fact that they haven't referred to the Buckingham design guide, which was set out in and agreed and recognised as a policy, safe policy within the veil of our plan, hasn't been cited in it. The congress of the way they've changed the streets and the way they put them in, and the way the actual outlay and the building materials isn't mentioned. There's a various selection. If they'd have read the design guide, they would have made a better selection of materials, basement and where they put things in. What we don't want is a state that looks, we don't want a state that, we want a state that looks correct, but we don't want a state that looks like any other estate in any major city, be it court, a town, or whatever. I think I used many of the points this morning, but I am concerned that if this goes through without reference to the design guide and the work that was gone in 2001, I think it was adopted when Christine Strain-Clark was mayor, so that shows you how many years ago it was, and it was worked through when Rob Lehman was the mayor of Buckingham with Caroline Cummins was involved in it heavily then, so you can tell exactly how much people worked on it. So I am worried about that, and I think what Roger put together is salient, correct, poignant, and points out the main failings of it. And as I said, I used it in large. It was probably the best bit of spelling I had in my response this morning in email. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suchby. Councillor White.
Thank you. Most of my comments have already referred to in the previous discussion, but I think one thing in particular the design guide's very weak on is those entrances and exits into and out of the site. That is absolutely critical at this stage, that if they want to atone for the right design is how it links with the rest of the town.
Yeah.
You know, the junction towards your way for the rest of the phases is so important because at the moment it's a very sharp, well, T junction in effect. They're going to turn that into crossroads. How do they want to actually make that in terms of a piece of town design? Absolutely silent. And yet that's kind of a key junction. And we know how difficult it was to get the junction outside the car park here, with the care home. Right. This will be way, way more important than that junction. I mean, yeah, completely split. And they talk about urban design, they talk about placemaking, but actually when it comes to the crunch, they have just, as already been suggested, they're already repeating the same old developer design codes are used up and down the country.
Yeah.
There's very little Buckingham specific here, and there's very little place specific where they can actually use their creativity and design nous is how they want to connect this into the rest of the town. And that's where they're silent. So I'm really disappointed. I mean, it's a name, the company that's done this is a name that we've seen before. They should know the town, and yet they're doing exactly what they did about them, which is to ignore the blue time.
Yeah.
And this is where they could have got some kudos. They could have did for a little bit of work. They could have given us something better. So happy to object to this and request some more localized design coding that actually is relevant to the site.
Very much. That's the.
I just like the way they put a lot of thought in this because to have all the rainwater in black and the fascias in black and the garage doors in black and the electricity meters in black. It's incredible how they really put thought and sat round the table with this.
Black and white.
Madam Mayor, put a couple of quick points. First of all, an observation which came up in the discussion we've had. In our planning committee meeting this evening, there's an application at 24 Chandos Road. Talk about that now, but if you actually look at the building, extremely interesting vernacular brickwork. I'd like to take some of these people who do such designs down there and say, that's what. So that's an observation. The second one, it concerns block paving, which is susceptible to damage over the longer term and needs quite a bit of maintenance. And this inevitably, I think, will fall on management organisations within the life of the development, and then in turn will fall on the residents. It is interesting. I've been told by an extremely good source that in Essex there is quite a keenness by developers on brick paving. Nevertheless, they have got an agreement from the developer that during the life of the development, they will undertake to both repair at their cost any damage to brick paving and brickwork. And I wonder whether if we made that clear somewhere in our submission, it might give these chaps a pause for thought.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cole, do you want to make your proposal in relation to the design statement?
I'd just like to say one thing which is positive in this. Let's be fair, they have actually now considered the dormice. They've actually recognised that there's a wood area in the middle. What they haven't put in place, following on for the comments everyone else made, is a plan for how they're going to manage that site afterwards. They just recognise that they're there and move the woodland and previously was being scanned over. I know we're all favour of wildlife and the environment. They've recognised it, but they haven't put a plan in how they're going to manage that. So basically, it's just for the development plan and getting the approval. But on the comment that we should say to them that we want to know what areas of this road are going to be adopted, because if there's a lot of brickwork out there, I hardly imagine that Buckinghamshire Council want to take on the responsibility of large brickwork areas, as we know that they're not sustainable, as was said earlier, for many reasons, and they perish. So I think we need to have an understanding of what's going to be adopted, because the residents will be paying for everything else.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Yep, thank you. Just to answer Councillor Stutford's concern about dormice and biodiversity, that is covered, of course, in the reserved matters application, that will be included. So my proposal then is regarding the design code, which is a separate submission for the discharge of condition 8 of the original outline planning commission, that we continue to oppose it as we did last year on the grounds that it is totally inadequate.
Very much. Second by Councillor O'Donoghue. Those in favour of that? Again, unanimous. Thank you very much for that. It's a very important move tonight because of the serious nature of the remaining phases as well, and we needed to get that sorted. So thank you very much, and thanks to Roger for coming along tonight and all the work you've done. So we move to item 4, internal fund transfer. We've got a report from the town clerk and the responsible finance. And it's recommended that £430,000 be transferred from the current account into the savings account. And the background of that is shown in the report. Did anybody want to ask? Did you want to say anything?
Basically, it's fairly standard because it's such a large amount of money in one go. I brought it to you for your approval. I moved it back and forward as to try and keep as much in there as reasonable to generate as much interest as possible.
Thank you.
I agree.
Councillor
Proposed with the recommendation.
Yeah, we have a second. Councillor Willett.
Got it.
Those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. And similar in some ways, item 5, committed expenditure, and this is from the assistant.
May I just talk through
Yeah.
all of these? These are basically the end of term niceties that we need a minute and next to it. I don't think that this has always been done, but the audience is very clear that they would like to see a minute. We're aware that we are moving around. They are fairly straightforward. It is basically about expenditure as we go into the new financial year, just moving it from last year's budget to this year's budget, if that makes sense. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Stutford.
That will include all the earmark reserves.
No, it doesn't include all the earmark reserves. That will be a discussion for the full council. This is literally just for the earmark reserve where we already have a purchase order.
Yeah,
So we're
okay.
partway through.
Yeah, we'll do that later. Thank you. I'm happy to
Any other
propose.
questions?
Propose
To go
to
to
do so.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Do we have a second of that? Those are Councillor Davies. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. And item 6, which is similar matter.
Yeah, well, it's identical, but I've basically covered all three of these reports in one go. They are, one is what's committed, one is actually fixed assets is probably the more complicated ones.
To do with the income received, does somebody, anybody want to ask any questions about that?
No.
Suppose we really do. So proposed by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor O'Donoghue. Those in favour, please show. Yes, thank you. And then fixed assets, item 7.
So we are basically we have to record all of our major assets and the value of over £1,000. And I need to tell you what we're removing things in and out of that asset register. So there are a few things that are going out. The swan sculptures, which were obviously auctioned at the end of the project, have gone.
That's the otters.
Otters.
Sorry, let me try
We haven't
again.
done the swans yet.
Let's start again. We're moving in the swan sculptures because we don't now purchase them, so they're removing. My wig, which came in at a cost of £491, the toddler unit down at Chandos and the tipper truck that we bought at the start of the year are added to the register. The otter sculptures were auctioned off and they're on their way out. Paul's wig, which we sold to Paul, is on its way out, and it's already more than £1. They're all quite straightforward. The ones below, the explanation isn't amazing, so I will just explain. When things get transferred into Realtus, which is our accounting system, For some reason, these three items decided to transfer at 100 times their actual value. So what they should be, the first one, MISC 31, should actually be £1,852 with a round up. The second one is a metal bench, which should have been £561.65. And the third one, the litter bin, is actually only worth £534.30, not £52,000. So the amounts that you can see there are the amounts that we are going to reduce the asset register by, which isn't particularly clear in the report. So I hope that has explained it. I'm not sure it has explained it particularly.
No, don't.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
I'm very upset that the litter bin is worth so little. I was rather thinking if we had a bin of such significant note and value that we would be auctioning it. Rubbish is the precept. But obviously rubbish it was, but I do recognise the report and vote to accept it. With disappointment that the bin was worth so little.
Councillor Try.
Thank you. Just to keep you in the hot seat a little longer. Is there any reason that our systems didn't pick this up before? Either in the finance committee when we maybe review some of these?
I don't have a good answer. It would have happened right at the start of the previous financial year. I think Jodie's been aware, but now we're getting to the end of the year, we need to tidy up the numbers and make everything balanced.
But it wouldn't have upset our figures anyway, because these are just assets. So it's a virtual figure, not something going through our account system.
No.
Yeah.
But we are legally required.
Agreed. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote on this? We propose from second.
I proposed it.
I'll second it. I'll second it. Thank you. Those in favour, please show.
I think that's everyone again. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last item on this is item 8, committed expenditure.
Basically exactly the same as the first thing, but for committed expenditure in earmarked reserves, and as I've already said to Councillor Stuffy, this isn't a discussion of what our earmarked reserves are going to be for the coming year. This is just money that we are committed to paying, which is going to come out of earmarked reserve rather than general.
Any questions or can we move to the vote?
Just that I'm sure the town clerk will do it, that there'll be a note to go to the respective committees about those earmarked reserves, so that then they discuss it, to note at the meeting that it goes to thereafter.
Well, earmarked reserve will belong to full council, so we discuss.
Yeah, but then the committee budgets have got earmarked reserves against stuff in them, so it should be awarded backwards, and that they should know where it's gone.
Somebody like to propose we accept this? Councillor Davies, second. Councillor Stutchbury. Can we vote please? Those in favour? Thank you. So that concludes those items. Chair's announcements. I have two. The first, unfortunately, has disappeared from the screen, was to congratulate Councillor Bogan on his award for PhD. Because that's a serious piece of work. So if we can record our congratulations to him, I was hoping to congratulate him in person, but that doesn't seem to be possible. So well done him. And also, I think this is effectively my last evening as chair. So I would like to thank you all for your support, staff, town clerk especially, and all my councillor colleagues for your support over these last 2 years. It's made the job much more doable and agreeable. And my hope is going forward. One of the things I said right at the beginning, I like it. We're all here to benefit or to work for the benefit of our community in Buckingham. And if we all agreed about everything all the time, we wouldn't be the right group of councillors. So we're clearly going to have people with different opinions. And my hope was and remains that we can do that. We can disagree in an agreeable way because we are all here for the benefit of our community. Anyway, thank you for your support, and we look forward to a change of mayor and deputy mayor next month.
After the last meeting, the chair.
Well, I only chair the first item of
Yeah, I know
the.
you do.
And then, the annual statutory meeting is on the 22nd of May and then interim councils the 19th of June. So that completes.
And could I propose that we record our thanks to Margaret in the minutes? And the time and effort she's put into it.
Yeah.
The sincere way that she's approached it, and the fact that she's been a fair and a dispassionate chair.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and that completes interim council. We'll reconvene as planning shortly. Thank you.
You shut
Thank you,
down my
Margaret.
feed.
Thank you, Margaret. Bye, everyone.